Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm Melissa. So if you have been around my channel, you know that I talk about TV stuff, movie stuff, and sometimes I'll sprinkle in some book stuff because as I got back into reading around late 2021, I was just binging so many romance novels. I got back into my romance reading era and I just have not stopped. So that made me want to be able to share what I'm reading because I know there is a large romance community on BookTube. So I wanted to just share and gush about the books that I've been reading this year. Some of them are books that I've really enjoyed. Usually I'll rate those 4 stars, and then there's books where they just kind of like sweep me up, knock me off my feet, and have made it towards like my all-time favorite list, and I rated those 5 stars. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about them today. You'll notice by my thumbnail that a girl was in her sports romance era. She was also in her college sports romance era. So that's something that's very different for me because when I started my reading journey, I actually started binging a whole lot of historicals, starting with the Julia Quinn novels and then her spin-offs and the prequels. And then I slowly dipped into contemporary. I was very cautious. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work out. But now contemporary is basically all that I read. I haven't read many historicals lately, although there will be one historical that makes it to this list. So I'm very excited to talk about that one. I realized I did my entire intro without my mic on, so that's fun. I want to start off my list with Offside by Avery Keelan. I read this a few months ago and it is quite a thick novel, and from my understanding it actually originates from Wattpad. It begins with our heroine Bailey and the hero is Chase. Bailey gets dumped on her 21st birthday by her longtime boyfriend Luke, and she decides she just needs to blow off some steam. She needs to go out with her friends and, you know, maybe flirt a little to get over her horrible ex. And then in comes our hero Chase. He spots her, tries to hit on her, but she is getting a little bit, you know, carried away. She's had one too many drinks. And so he ends up having to take care of her. There is a sleepover that happens. There's no one night stand. There's no hooking up. But he's a good guy. He realizes that she's kind of spinning out and just takes care of her for that first night. And it really kind of starts off as this friendship in the beginning. Chase is from her school's rival team. This is a hockey romance, by the way. She is very much into hockey. Her brother plays hockey for her college, and so does her ex-boyfriend. So it is a bit like controversial that she is, you know, in league and associating herself with Chase, the rival dude from the rival hockey team. What I really enjoyed about this one is the progression of the relationship. Chase definitely falls first, and one thing you want to know about me in my romance reading era, that is one of my favorite tropes, is when he falls first. I love it when the man is pining, or if they have met, he's the one that falls first. He knows that he wants to make her feel like she can trust him. He wants to make her feel comfortable. So his quest to pursue her is really sweet. It starts off with some like hot chocolate dates, and then he's kind of like there to help her escape her horrible friends who all pretty much abandon her when her ex-boyfriend Luke dumps her. She's got horrible friends in this book. They got me so pissed off at them. But Chase is there for her, to comfort her, to just make her feel better. And I really love how honest he is. He even starts talking to her about certain personal things that she told him about while she was drunk. Some things about her ex-boyfriend's lack of performance in the bedroom, and he brings it up in such a way it's really mature, and I just love the open communication. And even though she's pretty shy and embarrassed at first, he makes her feel so comfortable to just open up, and he really just takes his time with her in that area because he knows that she's just a little bit shyer about it, and she didn't have great experiences in her past because of her ex-boyfriend, who just didn't really care about her in that sense. This one, I will say, I did not love the third act drama that ensues. It just felt a little bit, sorry if you hear my dog, he's just being a dog. It does kind of fall into the mustache twirling villain thing that I don't love, having to do with exes. But even even though this book had that, and it was kind of a lot and it was kind of annoying, that didn't detract my entire enjoyment of watching this romance, because I really enjoyed the dynamic between Bailey and Chase. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Quarterback Sneak by Kandi Steiner. So I binged this entire series, which is called the Red Zone Rival series. I read all of them except for the first one, all out of order, because I'm that girl who reads romance novels out of order. Comment below if you do the same thing, or are you the type that has to read in order? I binged all of them, and I started with the one that I think is the fan favorite called Blindside. It's sort of like a fake dating football romance, and I thought it was fine. And then after that, I read Hail Mary, which I also enjoyed. I did not anticipate how slow of a burn that one would be. I enjoyed it for the most part. And then I read Quarterback Sneak, which is actually the book that I read on my vacation in Greece. I did a vlog about Greece, so check that out below if you want. And I kind of devoured it. I ate it up. I really enjoyed it. So this one follows Holden and Julep. Holden is the quarterback / captain of his football team at his school, and Julep is this trainer for the football team. She's in training to be a trainer, and her father is the coach. And right off the bat, this new coach to the team lets the football team know that his daughter is absolutely, completely, 100,000% off limits. So of course that means this is a forbidden romance. So Julep is definitely a pricklier heroine, which I always appreciate, because I think we read so many books where the hero is the one that is kind of like broody, or just kind of like in his feelings, or is damaged and has some things going on in his life, which this book definitely does. I liked how Kandi wrote these fully fledged characters. Holden has gone through some things in his past as well. He's gone through some pretty tragic things in his family, but so has Julep. And it's interesting to see how both of them have dealt with that throughout their lives in different ways. Julep has a little bit more of a self-destructive way that she deals with things. You kind of get to see her really hold back, and she really is trying to just numb herself from certain things. She and Holden do start off having this, it's not really enemies to lovers, but he kind of like teases her. He try to like pokes the bear or what have you, because he's trying to get her attention. He's trying to get a rise out of her, because she's kind of like very serious and all about her training. She's not trying to have a situationship with any of these football players. So it's fun. I always enjoy seeing banter, and I always love seeing characters snipe at each other. You always have to make it so that like the hero and the heroine, if you're gonna have them bickering or have somewhat of a prickly relationship, it's good to have them both on that same level where they can both have that like verbal ping pong. So I like that this book includes that. But eventually, of course, it's a romance book, so eventually they do give in to their attraction to each other, and they start off having a secret relationship. And this was a juicy one, because as I mentioned, the coach, her dad, did say she's off limits. And I will say, for a lot of the book, even though he has mentioned that she's off limits, I did keep wondering, well, why is she off limits? Holden is known to be this player, and he is known to be this player, but nothing in the book indicates that he's like a bad person or a bad guy. And even though he is this playboy, we're told that, we don't really see that, which I am grateful for. I'm the kind of romance reader, I don't love seeing either characters hook up with other people. So I'm grateful that we don't see him hook up with other people. But I did keep questioning, why is this relationship so forbidden? And then there are finally some explanations and some revelations closer to the end as to why her father feels so strongly about her not getting involved with anybody on the football team. I really appreciated the heartfelt moments. This also has some good spice. In all three of the books, I will say Kandi knows how to write her spice. This was my first experience with her. She's writing a hockey romance next for her next series, and I definitely will be on the lookout for that one. Next book I'm going to talk about is The Deal by Elle. I was very late to the game, okay, because it was only after I read this book that I realized how popular this series is and how popular this author is, and that this particular couple in this book, which I think is the first book, yes, from the off-campus series, is the most beloved and the most popular. So when I started my romance reading journey, I was really not looking to read any sort of new adult books. If you guys don't know, new adult means when it's set in college and the characters are of college age, so usually in their early 20s. And this is the first book that I read during my romance reading journey. I just took a chance. I actually got the recommendation from ChatGPT. I was experimenting with something and I was just curious if, the AI could tell me what my next favorite read would be. I took a chance, and you know what? ChatGPT wasn't wrong. I was pleasantly surprised about how much I enjoyed this. So The Deal stars Garrett and Hannah, and they basically make a deal to help each other out, which is one of my favorite tropes in romances, is when they have let's make a deal. So Garrett needs help in one of his classes. I think it's ethics, a class that Hannah is doing very well in, and he sees that, he realizes it, and he's a smart boy. He's like, well, I'm gonna get her to help me because I need to pass this class. And then Hannah, I think, is majored in art. She has a crush on somebody else, and Garrett realizes this, so he makes a proposal to help her out to get the attention of her crush if she helps him with their ethics class. And so our story begins. I love this trope so much because it always starts off with, well, this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. You help me, I help you, and then we're done. That's it. And I always love it when somebody starts off the story thinking that they like someone else, but then they're spending so much time with the other person that they kind of forget about their feelings for this person, and they're kind of enamored with this person, and that is what happens here. I will say this one also, is a he falls first. So the more time that they spend together, they just fall for each other. Garrett, of course, again, all these athletes are like these playboys, but he is known as the guy who, is a womanizer. He doesn't do the relationship thing. He doesn't see the point in it. But the more time he spends with Hannah, he realizes that I actually like spending time with her. I like talking to her. I feel protective of her. I want to show her that she can trust me. And I think the relationship here is just so beautiful. This does also deal with some hard content. So if you guys, I think I'm the last person who hasn't read this, but if you guys have not read this yet, check the trigger warnings, because there are some mentions of SA and also verbal and physical abuse from a parent. So both of them have to deal with past traumas, and we get to see them. The more that they spend time with each other, the more that they open up to each other about certain things that they have dealt with and are still dealing with. And one of the things that Hannah has to deal with is trying to open up herself again and finding her way back sexually to a place where she can enjoy and actually be able to orgasm again. She kind of is open about that, and we get to see this beautiful relationship develop from them, physically but also emotionally. Sometimes I think some romance novels can suffer from third act conflicts that just don't make any sense, or they just feel like inorganic, is just kind of thrown in there for conflict's sake. But I think in this book it did make sense how it happened, because we know one of the other characters in this book is a POS, and for them to do that to one of the characters, it tracked. So I didn't mind the third act conflict in this book. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a historical romance. Yes! I'm happy to talk about it because, as I said, I started out binging romance by binging a bunch of historical romances, and I just haven't been into them as much lately, and I'm sad about it. I'm hoping that I will get back into them. But this year I did read a historical romance, and that is The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe. This came out in January, which was actually a reread for me via audio because I did read the physical arc back in September of last year. And usually if I have read something physically and I like it enough and the audio is coming out, I will reread it via audio. The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe is the 4th book of her Rebels of Fifth Avenue series. A series that I pretty much read out of order again, because I'm that bitch. The Duke Gets Even stars Nellie Young and the Duke of Lockwood. So if you guys haven't read the other books, you see this entire friend group that includes the hero and the heroine. And Lockwood has actually courted and was even engaged for a brief amount of time with one of the heroines from the other books. But it was never a love match. He is a duke who is destitute and he is very desperate to save his estate. So he has come to America to find an heiress to save his entire estate. So it has not worked out with each and every one of Nellie's friends. And Nellie is a girl who's not a big fan of the Duke because she thinks he's just this guy who's coming over to America to, take away her friends and because he also almost kind of cheated on one of her best friends, but it did not happen. Their one night stand did not happen because in The Duke Gets Even, it opens up with this sort of like midnight tryst in the ocean with Nellie and the Duke, but both of them don't know who each other is. And it's not until the next day when he shows up at the party in Newport that they discover who each other is. So right off the bat, she is like, nope, you are not coming near me or my friends. So needless to say, their relationship starts off kind of rocky. It definitely is a bit more enemies to lovers, but they are both very good at the sniping at each other, which I think is important. If you're going to write a enemies to lovers, you can't make somebody too much of an asshole or too mean. And while this isn't the all-time fave for me from Joanna Shupe, I still really enjoyed it because we have a hero who, again, falls first. I have a style that I love. At first, Andrew, who is the Duke of Lockwood, he needs an heiress who has no scandals attached to her name. She has to have a reputation that is super squeaky clean. So that's why at first he's not really seeing Nellie as a potential bride for him. But that is until around maybe, well, I won't say which percentage in case you haven't read it. I don't want to spoil too much for you. You have to go in, being surprised. But maybe like fairly early on, he decides, you know what? No, this woman, she's who I want, and I don't care what society thinks. Now, when it comes to Nellie, she's definitely a stubborn heroine, which I love. I love my heroines, snarky, sarcastic, prickly, because even though she keeps insisting that there's nothing going on between them that's serious, they're just having fun. It's just like it's like a friends with benefits situation. We see her inner dialogue and she discovers that she really, really likes him. But Nellie is someone who is also, she's very kind of free and the wild child, but she's also actually really guarded, and she's dealing with some issues from abandonment issues and grief from her mother that passed away, and that has made her afraid to open up to really love somebody again because she's afraid of loss. She's very headstrong and she has some strong opinions about what women should be able to do with their body and family planning, so she doesn't want to give up her rights. So the Duke of Lockwood in this book has a task at his hands to try to convince this woman that he loves to, confess her feelings too, so that they can go off and be married. How do you take this woman who's so independent, who doesn't want to get married, to like kind of give up her freedom in a way and go across the pond? How do you do that? If you want to find out, read The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Right Move by Liz Tomforde. I saw an IG live with her and she says it's pronounced Tomforde and that everybody pronounces it wrong, so keep that in mind from now on. But this is a new series to me, and I also again read it out of order because I kept seeing The Right Move pop up on Bookstagram and Goodreads over and over again, and I had been kind of put off by fake dating. I kind of fell out of love with the trope because I felt like lately the books that I read that had that trope just didn't really do anything for me. They didn't really pull off the trope very well. So I was curious because I kept hearing about how swoony the book is and how swoony the hero was. So that made me curious enough to check it out. But I was very cautious and I just didn't know how it was going to go because, again, fake dating usually lately has just not been my thing. And then I started this book, and I would say because of this book, it's made me more open to reading more fake dating romances. Ryan Shay. I don't know. I mean, if you clicked on this video, I think maybe you've already read this book, but I just really enjoyed it. This book has made it hard for me to enjoy heroes from other books after I read this, like heroes who try to do like a grand gesture or who try to show their love through their actions. Those books have made it this book has made it hard for me to enjoy and like believe and accept other heroes. So sorry to authors out there. I mean, there is the reason why so many of us fell in love with this new book boyfriend, Ryan Shay, because of his quiet love. He is like the epitome of actions speak louder than words, even though I do think words are important too. He's a stoic athlete. It is a basketball romance. He's very, very guarded because of some things that he has gone through in his past. It's made him very wary of new people, and it's made him kind of change his mind about what his future could look like until Indigo Ivers walks into his life. Indigo, aka Indy, is the heroine of this book, and she has just been through this awful breakup because she caught her longtime boyfriend cheating on her, and they were living together, and now she has nowhere to live because obviously of the cheating scandal. And she is a flight attendant as well, so during the season she's traveling with the hockey team. And the heroine of the first book, Stevie, is her best friend, begs her brother Ryan to take in Indy because she has nowhere to go. And at first he's like, no, I don't want anybody here, I like my own space, until he finally gives in because he just can't say no to his sister. His sister, who is his twin, is like his best friend. He finally gives in to her, and Indy moves in, and it starts off a little bit rocky at first because, as I said, Ryan at first is not about it because he doesn't really trust anybody. He doesn't want anybody in his space. And in their first scene together, he is a little bit rude. He is, but mostly because he was trying so hard to be nice and say the right thing, but like because of the anxiety of having somebody in his space, it comes out wrong. I mean, I could definitely relate to that. So I think that came off realistic. And just little by little, you see his wall kind of cracking down little by little because Indy is pretty much his opposite. It is a roommates romance. It is an opposites attract romance. He is very he keeps things very black and white in his apartment, and she's very colorful. She loves colors and plants, and what I love about this is that there are things that she'll mention that she talks to him about that he'll pick up on, and then he'll do certain things for her. So for example, she mentions that she loves the color lavender, and when she doesn't have a bed for the new apartment, he gets her a bed because he says, it's practical, you needed a bed, but the sheets are purple because he remembers her saying that she loves that color. She mentions that she only likes to drink her coffee cold. One morning, she wakes up, she opens the fridge, and she sees her mug is there, and it has coffee, and she's like, what is this? And he's like, oh, yeah, you mentioned you like cold coffee, so I just, put it in the fridge for you so that it doesn't water down. And it's just like, this man listens. And then he does those types of things and more. If you guys still have not read The Right Move, please do yourself a service and go read this book. It is the second book of a planned 4-book series. The third one comes out this October, and then I'm guessing the 4th one will come out next year. Okay, drum roll. My favorite book of the year so far is, you guessed it, because it's on the thumbnail. It's Mile High by Liz Tomforde. Oh, you guys, as I said, I read these books out of order, and I know my romance girlies all were raving about and loved The Right Move, and for good reason. I gave that book, by the way, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Sorry, 4.5/5 stars, because I thought it was really good and very, very swoony. And then I read Mile High, and it's hard for me to quantify into words why that one was like a little bit higher for me in the ratings, even though I also gave that 5 stars. And that book is even longer. I have discovered something about myself as a romance reader. I don't mind a long book if I'm enjoying my time with it. If you're gonna give me so many like cute scenes of just them being a couple, I eat that stuff up. I'm not a person who loves high angst. I don't love a ton of conflict. If it's mostly character driven as opposed to super plot driven, I am there. So Mile High, if you guys don't know, stars Evan Zanders and Stevie Shea. She's a flight attendant for his hockey team. They start off on a very rocky start because as she's about to ask him if he's ready for his exit row briefing, he thinks she's about to ask him for his autograph. So he comes off very presumptuous, very prickish. He's kind of a prick in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie. If you still haven't read it and you don't know, you may not like him in the very beginning, because I know I didn't. I was just like, oh, like I hated his attitude. But here's the thing: if you're gonna do an enemies to lovers, you have to create also a heroine who's able to do that verbal sniping right back. You know, she never took his shit. So as soon as he's like, sorry, I don't do autographs, she's like, well, I didn't want your autograph. I don't even know who you are. Like, she really puts him in his place, and I love that. I love watching that. I love the sniping and the back and forth. What I loved about this book is that both of these characters are both confident, but they're also insecure in different ways. And I liked how realistic that was. I think there's days where you feel good and confident and good to go, and there's other days that are going to be harder and rougher. Even if you're dealing with things, even if you've had things happen to you in the past, that there's days where you're cool and you're not thinking about it. There's other days where things will catch up to you and you're just going through a rough patch, or you're going through your dark days. That is something that is explored in this book. This book also deals with a heroine who has some body image issues, which is actually the thing that almost kept me from reading this book. I forgot to mention, I went into Mile High thinking that I would DNF it. It just didn't sound like something that was a good time. Like, I read romance to have a good time. I love to feel the feels, to feel the butterflies and the swoon. And I just didn't feel like, I never want to read things that are just kind of like heavy. And I was like, well, if she's dealing with like her body image issues and it's a large part of the story, I just don't think I'm gonna have a good time with this. But I had a good time with this. It is definitely part of her characterization. It's something that she deals with, but I wouldn't say that it completely overtakes the story, because these characters have to deal with a lot of different things, such as his sort of celebrity life, I'll say, because he's a famous athlete. He plays hockey, he's known, so they have to deal with other things, like the paparazzi and his agent and whatnot. So this is an enemies to lovers. It is a forbidden romance. We get to see I love the character development in this book. That's why I'm like in a reading slump. I feel like everything that I'm picking up lately has just been too insta-lovey or too insta-lust. And in this book, they definitely experience that sort of sexual attraction in the beginning. And then it kind of starts off with them just having like a good time. But then, you know, they're spending more time with each other. They spend time talking to each other. And then, you know, they realize, wait, I don't want to just take off my clothes with you. I kind of want to like go to the dog park with you. I kind of want to share a meal with you. And I eat that stuff up. I love it. I love when you could actually see characters falling for each other, like why it makes sense, why they are good for each other. I love this. Again, it is a long one. It's a long book, but I read this an entire Saturday. And by the time that I looked up at the clock, I saw it was almost 4 a.m. So the time flew for me. I finally finished it like Sunday early the next day. It's a book that I have not stopped thinking about. I keep recommending it to my friends. I wish I could read it for the first time. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know which are your favorites below. You guys have seen that I have favorites. I love when the hero falls first. I love when he's been pining. I love the let's make a deal trope. So I am in a book slump at this time. If you have recommendations for me, please write them down below. I'm always looking for my next 4 or 5-star book. If you guys are interested to see more bookish content, let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you guys next time.